Hello and welcome to the first episode of Season 3 of What I Did Next from A&T Media. I'm Malak Fuad, your host. The seasoned listeners among you will know that the show focuses on people's personal and professional crossroads and looks at those trajectories from key pivot points. My guests are multilingual, multicultural, and they are either from the Middle East or are connected to the region in some way. My guests are industry leaders, they are curious and passionate about the world around them, and they aim to leave their mark in some way. Today, for the season's inaugural episode, I'm beyond thrilled to welcome the passionate, talented, and charming Fatma Said. Fatma is a soprano taking the world of opera by storm. Egyptian born and bred, Fatma makes us, her compatriots, fiercely proud of her achievements so far. Not many people can call the iconic La Scala theatre in Milan the launchpad for their careers, but Fatma counts this quintessential opera house as a foundational block of her education as a singer and as her first step on her way to stardom. From that point onwards, she has continued to break the mold on just about every level. Fatma tours the world as a soprano, bringing beloved roles to life in productions spanning the traditional languages of opera: Italian, German, French, and Russian. In October 2020, Fatma released her debut album with Warner Classics called El Noor. A tour de force, this album sees Fatma crossing cultures from Spain, Egypt, and France, and encompasses classic opera with folk songs as well. A new album of her work is expected later this year. Fatma was a dream guest, open, honest, and fun. She talks about her fears and her joys with equal measure and poise. We start our discussion today with our new icebreaker questions. The first question is based on the Malcolm Gladwell book, The Tipping Point. You can find out more details about the question on our Instagram page and on our new Twitter account. I asked Fatma what personality type from the book she most associates with: a connector, a salesman, or a maven.
I try to do my best not to overthink them, I'll be very honest. And I used at the beginning the method of elimination, because I am not a connector. I'm not that type of person who's like also a social butterfly who knows this and that person and knows how to. So I'm not that person. I'm also not a salesperson because I don't have the best negotiation skills, and that's why I have a management who takes over that part because I'm very bad at it. And I felt it was more of a business-oriented question and I felt that in my world of art and music, it was hard to also call myself a maven. However, I didn't want to leave Gladwell completely outside of the story. Yeah. I know he wrote The Outliers.
Yes.
And not that I'm one of them, but I could definitely connect much more with the 10,000-hour rule.
Tell me why, Fatma.
Because since I was young, I remember my father always telling me, victory happens when after 10,000 hours of work meets one moment of opportunity. And I've always lived by this phrase because I'm a believer. My profession is something where a lot of people tell me you're talented or talk a lot about talent, where I believe that talent is only 1% of any success story. Again, not that I'm a success story, but I always feel that since I was very young, there was no day that I spent not working. And since I was 13, and it's not only, and I'm always working, even if I'm on vacation, because talking about memory, I need to memorize all my texts. Right now, as we speak, I have about over 300 poetries by memory in 6 or 7 different languages.
Wow.
So in order to do that, I believe in the 10,000-hour rule because it's important to read something and just memorize it. I'm talking about the muscular memory.
Yes.
So, and there you need the 10,000
yes.
rule. And then you're only able to do art if you have done the 10,000-hour rule.
So it's a question of practice. It's practice.
But not practice 3-4 hours a day. It's I'm talking really about this very intense, focused practice. So it was hard. I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you a direct answer regarding if I'm one of the 3 because I couldn't connect with any of the 3.
But I'm impressed that you thought about it enough to look at his other work and find a connection there.
It was very interesting to see that he didn't only talk about these 3 types of people. He also dedicated another book to a completely different type of people. And again, I'm not saying that I'm part of it, but I'm saying that I could definitely connect with people who work so hard on something very specific to achieve something very, very specific in life, which I can definitely relate opera more to.
If I may say,
Yes.
looking at you as an outsider, and I'm looking at the three types of individuals, you are somebody who is sharing information in the sense that you're sharing your skill set, which is singing. And so you're sharing that with a very wide number of people. So if you want to take it very narrowly, we can put you as a maven.
That's what I thought at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when I thought a little bit more, I felt maybe, but still, I feel that it's not only about sharing information. I need to, like the step that I need to take before sharing the information,
you have to put the work in first.
A lot of work.
Yes.
I cannot do anything of what I'm doing without spending a lot of work doing it. So that's why I was between Maven and
you
Out
could do
Loud.
both.
Yeah. Or some people can do the three of them as well.
And what I've realized is that I find that most people are a combination of things anyway. Mm-hmm. It's not black and white. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a bit of nuance anyway. Yeah. So interesting. Thank you for that. Our second icebreaker is based on social media, whether Fatma is Team Instagram or Team Twitter. This is a question that has gotten surprising answers from guests this season, and Fatma's attitude to social media is quite unusual.
It was hard when I thought about that question because I'm not very attached to social media anyway. So if I don't follow anyone on social media, I don't have a personal Facebook account, for example. I don't have WhatsApp anymore. I'm like trying to like.
So these are conscious
decisions that I've always had, and I have like my phases, and social media does have a lot to do with my work. So that's why I cannot be completely disconnected. So I'm quite light when it comes to social media. Since I love to dance, I follow like a tango, the art of tango. That's one of the accounts I follow that I really enjoy because it shows you like slow motion steps that I really like to
practice and see.
So that's important to me. Tango is very important to me. And I follow I would follow another account called Classic Divinity, which is a really cool page because it shows you like parts of performances of famous opera singers that are singing 10 seconds of an opera aria, for example, and then they would show you the same 10 seconds sung by another singer and by another. So it's really interesting to see.
So you can compare that
exactly.
way.
It's really interesting to compare that exact part. Like, so
wow.
Also, an
are you on
fanatic. It? No, I'm not on
You're
it.
Not on it.
They talk about also singers that have been like
that are no longer around.
That had a perfect technique actually. So it's really nice to follow that. I would follow my sister just to make sure that I'm in touch with the family because my family
older or younger than you?
She's younger than I. There is an account called Greatest Reactions that is really funny. That just post, you remember something like America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
That exact type, more like the 21st century.
So the kind of thing you can look at in an airport when you're waiting for a plane.
I'm not very deep when it comes to social media. Yeah. So it's stuff that would make me smile or laugh or stuff that I would like to share with other friends and family that are light.
And tell me, Fatma, why did you stop using WhatsApp? I find that interesting. Why is that?
It's the first time to be public about that. That's been only since maybe 2 months.
Were you being hounded by messages by a lot of people, or?
No, I felt that it's I don't know if I should say this publicly. No, but I feel connecting with people has been so easy that we've been taking it for granted, and I feel much happier without it because I realized that I'm actually in touch with the people who I want to be in touch with and who want to be in touch with me in a very much more personal way.
In a more real way.
My family was so mad at me that I canceled the application or that
because you have family groups that you're missing out on and things like that. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, because you're not in the group anymore, you weren't up to date with this and that. And it was a bit difficult. I thought I would deactivate it or delete it for 2 weeks at the beginning because I had a very intense working period. And then afterwards, I realized, why would I was so happy these 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, I woke up not looking at my phone.
You didn't touch your phone as much?
At all. Yeah. I was very disconnected from my phone, and I thought that was very healthy.
Wow.
I write emails more now.
Okay.
And I think that's also very nice because I feel you need to dedicate time to do that.
Because I have 2 children who are teenagers, and the phone is their life.
Yeah.
And it's extremely disturbing. And it really worries me because, if they're in a situation where they have no access to their phone, I feel like there is a withdrawal thing going on, and it just really bothers my husband and me.
I understand.
And I don't.
that.
We need to. There has to be a way to take a break from it. A healthy break.
But I need to also stress I did not disappear. I even have I realized on my phone I had Signal and Telegram. Like
Which
I'm
you
very
use.
and Viber. Which is activated on my phone,
Yeah.
and which a lot of people use now.
Yeah.
So I felt I it's not like I decided to disappear from.
Yes.
I'm very accessible,
Yes.
but only for people who actually want to be in
Right,
touch with me.
right,
So it's not
right.
like I'm making people pay for a phone call
Sure,
to call me now
sure,
or get
sure.
in touch.
Sure.
So I can still have video
Yeah,
calls
yeah.
normally. And
Let's go back a little bit, Fatma. Let's start a little bit more at the beginning. So I know that you were born and raised in Egypt. You were in a German school. At what point in your childhood, early teens, did you realize, actually, this is a bit more than just me liking to sing? Was there a moment where it happened, or was it a gradual thing? Explain that to me, because I don't have that gift, and I don't know many people who do. And I want to just understand how it came to be a viable choice for you as a lifestyle, as a career.
But I cannot tell that I had a certain point where I realized that's what I want to do forever. I think, as you said, it came gradually. Because at the beginning, when I always sang. I cannot remember a time when I didn't. But it was never like I'm the singer of the family, or I sang with my siblings. That was a very normal thing to do for any child. So I was not a special child or anything when it comes to artistic matters.
So they didn't consider you gifted as a child?
No, like a normal child
Yes.
who loves to sing and act and dance, like a lot of children.
Yes, of course.
So that's very normal. And I think it started getting more serious, or like a serious hobby, when I started being part of the school competitions at school that allowed me also to compete in Germany. So that made a big difference, because that was the moment when I could compare my level to a more international level.
And what age were you at this point?
I started at 13, 14.
Okay.
And that was an interesting point, because it's very easy to be good at something where you don't really have competition. And
of course,
like in Egypt, because not a lot of people sing opera at that age, and not even at school, it's not really taught so intensely as in a German school. So it was nice to go abroad and see, am I as good? Am I not that good?
People like
Is
you.
It worth? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My age, and compare my level to them. And that's when things have changed a bit, because I started doing good in these competitions, and that really pushed me to actually enjoy it even more, learn more, and take my lessons seriously.
And did that become a main focus for you as you were growing up, or was it always considered like an extracurricular activity, or did it take over from your studies? Did it become the main focus for you?
Yeah, gradually.
Gradually,
Because
okay.
I was also playing tennis, which was really important to me, and tennis took over for a very long period in my life. And I thought that was the thing, like that was the main thing that I'm doing, and singing was just a side, until suddenly both were equal, and then suddenly singing took over.
Did you have to make a choice for that?
Yeah, at one point.
You did a choice. You made a
because
choice.
my parents were like, do you want to go to tennis, or you want to go do singing, or do you want to there were a lot of training. There was a lot of training happening after school, and I had to make a choice eventually.
How did you make that choice?
I don't know. I felt I enjoyed singing much more than tennis. Like, I love tennis, but I couldn't really maybe reach the level of success that I wanted. Could be because I was not good enough. And I enjoyed it as a hobby, while as singing was not only a hobby, it really became my life at one point. And it's become what I'm really interested in, what I want to read more about. I wanted to be with singers and musicians. And I didn't have this huge passion with tennis as well. Although I really love tennis, and I've been playing tennis since I was 6. Not really.
Not so much.
Not
you
really.
don't have the time now.
Not really.
Yeah. And so this was more or less, you were still at school at this point.
Yeah.
So what, 16, 17?
6. I graduated at 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to university in Berlin.
Yes.
So you studied music at university.
Yes, I did my BA in music. Yeah, this is when I right after my bachelor's degree, that's when I started professionally working. And I wanted to get away from Germany so much. I wanted to, because I've been always in a German system, stuck in a German system, taught by German teachers, and then studied in Germany, lived in Germany. So I needed new blood, as they say.
You needed a new inspiration.
Yes, new teachers and a new experience. I felt I also needed some practical experience because university was very theoretical, and it was also a very safe space because I could try a lot of things. I'm at school, so you're always protected by teachers and the environment. And I felt I needed to go out there. And that's when I applied to go to La Scala in Italy. They have the Accademia del Teatro alla Scala, where I have studied and worked. They give you an opportunity to work with great musicians who come and sing at La Scala. You can master classes. I worked with directors, I worked with conductors of very, very high level, and at the same time giving us the chance to sing at the opera house itself, smaller roles,
must have been
medium
incredible,
roles.
Fatma.
Yeah, I was only 22 when I got there. I was the youngest. And that was also a problem. I was always the youngest wherever I went.
Is that considered like a school?
It's considered
so is it like a graduate school for singing? Were you with other students like you?
I was with much older students. I was saying that was always not a problem, but it was a huge challenge all my life that I started a lot of things early. Sometimes I think back with time and I'm like, am I sure I want to do these things so early again? Because I was very young, immature. My voice was not so mature. I always felt I had to do double the work because I was 22. People who were with me on that course were 28, 29, 27, 30. And because they had already finished their masters, they finished like a higher degree in opera. And then they come and have this icing on the cake of La Scala. Then La Scala would expect you to like be all over the world afterwards because you're like a product of their academy. And I only had a bachelor degree. And I was quite surprised I've been taken.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how hard it will be until I was part of the program.
And the program was for how long? 3 years?
It was for 2 years.
2 years.
And then I stayed for an extra year to work. It was the best experience of my life, the best years of my life. It's been a dream to live in Italy all my life. And I always wanted to learn the language. So I was so happy.
And now you speak Italian?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you understand it, you don't just sing it?
No, of course.
You understand it.
It's the operatic language.
And already you had the German from growing up. So there's a lot of opera in German already.
Yes.
So German and Italian are the main opera languages, aren't they?
German, Italian, French, and some Spanish as well.
Right.
These are the main languages. But of course, there's big Russian repertoire, for example.
Of course.
But see, that's a language, for example, that I worked so hard to learn it.
Yeah.
And I've had Russian workshops. However, I had a big problem with remembering what I'm saying, for example. So I realized I don't want to sing this language as long as I am not understanding every word because I could not remember every word.
What's your favorite language to sing in? Is there a favorite language?
I think that every language has its beauty. And I enjoy every beauty of each language, I must admit. It's hard.
So another related question. Is there a favorite role that you've played so far that you love the most?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I enjoyed them all, but I definitely enjoyed... I loved Nannetta from Falstaff. This is the last opera that Verdi wrote. I loved this role very, very much.
Why?
It was a young girl who was in love. I could really connect with that girl because I sang the role when I was quite young as well. And she was the youngest in the opera. And she was sneaking the whole time behind paravans and behind
so it felt
closed
appropriate
rooms.
for you.
Yeah, in order to see her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want her family to know. And I thought there was a lot. And you see, that's the beauty about opera is like, if I have never done that in real life, I'm doing it in an opera. Yeah. And it's like, I always think we get to live one life, but in opera, I get to live so many different lives. I get to be a queen, and I get to be a slave, and I get to be a young girl who's hiding from her parents that she's in love with a guy that they are not agreeing with.
So you're an actress.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful thing.
No,
you escape into different worlds.
You cannot be an opera singer without being an actress.
Yeah. And what was the role that you found the most challenging?
I did the magic flute a lot. And I think Pamina is not a very easy role. I mean, it's Mozart is wonderful. The music is very accessible. But I think Pamina is a role that develops throughout the opera. She is not the same person she was when she started the first act. And it's like every act, I feel she grows up a few years. So every time I go on stage, I need to have a completely different kind of maturity level in my voice and my body language.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed very much working with several directors about how to access this role and how to change my body language, how to change how I cannot change the notes, but I can change how I'm performing them,
how you
and
interpret
how I'm singing them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I love this philosophy in the role.
And what is the role that you haven't had yet that you're dying to
So
take?
so many.
Give me a couple.
I'm dying to die on stage.
Oh,
that I
wow.
haven't done
Okay.
yet. These are the best roles.
Because this is very dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah, opera is dramatic.
Of course.
And you have to take it very seriously.
Of course. And then the audience are in your hands, you know, they're just with you along the way. It's amazing.
And again, you get to die, and you get to re-die again. It's beautiful, and you get to live. And sometimes in some operas, you get to die, and people make you live.
But so, like who Madame Butterfly, for example?
Madame Butterfly, of course. That's
it's a classic, isn't it?
That's a classic and a beautiful role. And the way she dies is also dramatic because she, like, I'm not going to talk about the opera now, but she actually decides to kill herself. But right before killing yourself, hearing the sound of your child, like, it's very, very dramatic.
It's like a lot of issues there.
And or a Traviata, or a Manon, or a Mimi and La Bohème. I think these are all great roles where they die in the end.
When we come back, I talk to Fatma about success and burnout and her album El Noor. That's right after this short break. Welcome back. I'm Malak Fuad, and you're listening to What I Did Next, and our guest is the uber-talented Fatma Said. Give me a sense of what your schedule is like. I'm not going to ask you what your day is like, because I know that there's no such thing as a common or an average day. But I know that your schedule is planned months and years ahead. Mm-hmm. What is that like to have that kind of a lifestyle?
It's a tough lifestyle, but I think thanks to the German education, if I'm a good planner, you said you're a good planner as well. Yeah. If I'm a good planner, I think things should fall into place. But I'm generally very anxious about the way we manage opera productions, or we put dates for concerts, because it's very easy to be talking intensely, for example, about something that will happen in 2-3 years or 4 or 5 years.
But tell me, how did the Corona period affect that world? I mean, did people learn lessons that you can plan, but things happen and things just stop, and you have to just figure things out as you go along? Did it have an impact?
Of course, a very strong one. I'm very angry about how a lot of promoters handled the art industry in general, and I thought that it was quite unfair to a lot of musicians.
Tell me more about that.
I was in a very risky situation, because I chose a risky path in opera, because I chose to be a freelancer, which means I choose my projects, I choose my productions, my roles, I choose when to be where, which is lovely, and I think that's luxury. However, because I'm a freelancer, I couldn't do any of that. Like, friends of mine who were part of opera ensembles still earn their money monthly. Friends I know were on furlough. They still had an income. I had zero income almost for a year and a half. So that's also, I never thought that this would happen.
Of course.
But that's the risk I'm taking when I am a freelancer. Of course.
Because the rewards are also greater on the other side.
Exactly. So that was, of course, like, quite difficult for me. However, I think I was lucky in a way. I cannot really complain, because I had just released my album. So there was a lot happening on social media, and I had to really adapt to what do I need to do now that was different from a live performance. But then with time, a virtual concert is not a replacement.
No, of course not.
So I wanted so much this period to end in order to go back to a live audience again, because it was very difficult.
I want to talk to you about the album, but talk to me more about this lifestyle of the planning and the scheduling, and do you feel that your time is your own? Why? Because you are a freelancer, so you are, I guess, in control more of that.
Yes. So, like, in comparison to Corona, usually I have, for example, a schedule where I have a concert every 2 weeks, for example, or every 3 weeks, or sometimes every day. But then I make it a point to rest for a longer period of time. And in between, I'm always studying. I'm studying on the plane, I'm studying at the airport, I'm studying in the taxi. I'm living, as I said, out of a suitcase.
And what do you mean by studying? Like memorizing?
Yeah, making sure.
Reading the music?
Yeah, because I don't like to read the music in the concert. Sometimes you're allowed to, but I feel that I love to make myself completely free. And when you know something by heart to the point that if you forget the words, your mouth does it by itself. That's the level I try to always reach when I learn my music. That if I forget, because I was reading this book by Michael Caine, he was talking about his experience in
Michael
acting.
Caine, the actor?
Yes.
Yeah.
He wrote a beautiful book about how like his experience as an actor and how he started out, and then there was a chapter where he talked about how he was memorizing his texts, and then he was saying, unless you know your text like really inside out, you will never be able to be free in the moment when there are cameras, and then when there's an audience in theater and people watching you, or a big director that wants to spot you. Half of your brain is already frozen. So unless the memories in your
you have to
muscles,
feel like they're your own words. Almost.
Yeah, no, they have to be in your body, and then you think about art. But you cannot think about this both in the same time.
Yeah.
So that's the level I try to reach, and in order to do that, you have to like say the lines the whole time in your head.
And do you work with someone for that, or do you walk around the house speaking to yourself?
Yeah, I walk around the house. I walk around the house. I walk in the street singing in my head. Sometimes that's very bad when you're talking to someone and then you think about text. That's a bit embarrassing. But if you do it in a subtle way, that's okay.
Yeah. I know that you are extremely careful with yourself in terms of how you look after yourself. What they call now self-care, the idea of your diet, your rest, your sleep. Tell me a bit about that, because when we first spoke, when we were planning the interview, I had never, I guess I thought about it, but I never realized how important your well-being is to your job. Mm-hmm. And you were telling me a lot about your diet, the food you were eating, the things you don't eat, and how it all impacts.
I believe, like, with the experience I've had, I think that anything in my daily life that happens affects my voice. The voice is a very, very, very sensitive area in the body that I never got to see. And that's why I have to learn to always feel how it is. Even if it's injured, I need to think or feel that it is injured in order to treat it. And a lot of how do you say that in English? It is affected by a lot of different elements in life. It is affected by the weather, for example. Like if it's too humid or if it's too dry. When I travel to a new country and it's suddenly too cold and I'm used to like more of a normal weather. AC, I cannot sleep with an AC on because it dries up my voice quite quickly and it takes it a very long time to warm up the next day. Or it can even hurt the vocal folds. How I speak to people. My speaking voice is the number one rule of to keep a healthy voice. We learned how to sing. I have a technique of how I sing. We never learned how to speak. We just spoke.
That's true.
So we never learn how to use our bodies to speak. And that's why a lot of professors in universities, they have big vocal problems sometimes because they suddenly feel they need to speak loudly to a big classroom or teachers, and then they realize that they're not using their voice properly. Women who work in kindergartens, they speak in a very high pitch to kids. They're like that.
Yeah.
And that's very unhealthy as well. So we didn't learn how to speak. We just speak very instinctively.
Instinctively, yeah.
And in singing, I had to learn how to speak. Because if I speak for a long period of time, like many years, if I speak wrongly, and that I will never notice if I'm not an opera singer, can have a very, very strong effect to my singing voice. Because the singing, I don't want to compare it with pop or jazz, but in opera, we have to reach very, very high pitches as a soprano, for example, which means that I need very, very, very healthy vocal folds that close perfectly. Like the vocal folds, they do these vibrations, and these vibrations need to close perfectly in order to produce these beautiful high notes without them feeling pushed or anything. In order to do that, the whole body needs to be in perfect shape, because everything I drink, everything I eat affects not the folds directly, but affects everything around them, which are the muscles, the speaking muscles, Also, being tense or nervous about anything, of course, it hits the voice, because when you are nervous, the first thing you realize about yourself is that you're unable to breathe,
and you tense up,
and you don't breathe properly. And breathing is the first key to proper singing. If I don't know how to breathe, I won't be able to know how to sing. So and of course the emotional factors. I think that if I am sad and if something bad happens that is occupying my mind, it can have a direct effect on my voice and my performance as well. And if something good happens, I always believe that, if you are in love and happy, you don't need these 10 hours to sleep. You will perform perfectly as well. So
you will only once or twice, but the long term,
absolutely,
of course,
absolutely.
You can live on that for a while.
Absolutely. No, but these are temporary things, obviously.
Of course. But, and you mentioned to me before, keeping your immune system optimum is also extremely important.
Absolutely. We always say that a singer can notice when he or she are gonna catch a cold already a week before the cold. I feel it. I know it. I know next Friday I will have a cold, and I get it.
That's unbelievable.
It's a bit strange.
It's very strange.
But it's part of being connected to yourself.
Yeah, you're very in tune with your body.
Very, very much.
So you mentioned to me also that a few years ago, when you were maybe 24, 25, that you were burning out from the pace of your life and the career. And what did you learn from that? Because I think that was potentially an important pivot for you too.
Definitely.
In terms of how to go forward after that.
I think the pressure back then was very, very high. And this is like what I'm doing is, high performance type of job, which requires my person, not something that I do, but I need myself to do it. I'm not using an instrument to do it.
There's nothing external about it. It's all you.
It's all me.
Yeah.
And I would like to make the comparison with an instrument. Like if a pianist comes, has a performance, he will never come find the instrument, for example, half existent. Or imagine you're taking part, like a tiny part of a violin out of it, the violinist will never be able to play it. In singing, we are never in 100%. Like every morning I wake up, I might have a sore muscle. I might not feel great in my voice. I might have eaten something and I need to adapt to a new body every day. The thing is, when you're under pressure, you stop listening to a lot of body signals. And when you're young, you want to prove yourself. And when you have a lot of competition, you want to prove that you're as good as others.
And also when you're young, you don't know what the limit is.
Yes, and you think you're young, you can do everything.
You think you can just keep going.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
how did it manifest itself, the burnout that you felt? How did it manifest itself?
It took me time to even realize it, because I thought I'd only need a week off and I'd be up and running again. Mm-hmm. And I realized it took 6 months.
Wow.
And it was 6 months. And I stopped singing for 6 months. I didn't think I would stop for 6 months, but I had to always push my break.
And you weren't practicing? You weren't singing at all?
I couldn't.
You couldn't?
My voice wasn't responding anymore. And I remember very well.
And you were 25, Fatma?
I was 25 back then.
And what did you feel? What did you think?
It was horrible.
You were anxious, right, about your future then?
Yeah, because I was supposed to rest and I couldn't because I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
So, not that I could speak and everything, but I felt I lost my singing voice. And I just was everyone was like, you need a rest. And it's very hard to rest when something like this is happening to you. And
because it's a cycle. You get anxious and then your body can't rest.
Exactly. It doesn't help at all to get better. You have to really detach. And I've never done this before. And I was too much in my work. I wasn't sleeping very well, and sleep is major in singing as well. I mean, for everyone, but also for singers. And I remember.
How did you get out of it?
I got out of it when I started believing that my voice will come when it comes and my health comes first, because I felt very, 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 like with time, when I started to think about what I'm actually going through, I realized with time that it was a burnout because I was not getting better. And I was quite tired for a very long period of time. I wasn't in the mood of doing anything. And I was very depressed because I kept on canceling concerts. Of course, there was on the financial side also big problems because I had counted on very important concerts to live. And I couldn't make any money because I had to continue on canceling. And I had something where no doctor could tell me, you'll be fine in 2 months or you'll be fine. all the doctors told me, have a rest and your voice will come when it comes. So I was like, what, a year, 2 years? But I have performances in a year's time. Will I be ready by then? I need to prepare. And I couldn't tell anymore when I'll be fine again. And it was the first time I had to think, like, if I'm not going to be an opera singer, what am I going to do in life?
And what did you think?
It was so hard. I felt so confused because I felt like, what will I be? Will I be an actress? Will I teach? Now I'm 25. I don't want to start teaching. I barely know anything about opera.
But it must have been an extremely anxious time.
It was very hard. But then I started to do, and that I think is what healed me. After a few months, I started doing a lot of things that I always wanted to do and never did. Because as I said, I always worked. So I never planned a spontaneous trip in my life. You know, going on EasyJet, I remember I found a trip to Amsterdam with my sister that cost 29 euros. And we just booked the trip.
Went.
I've never done this in my life. And it was beautiful. I just
and
had
you had no
trip.
Commitments, no
schedule,
nothing.
Over a weekend. And we just took, it's very easy to take a plane within Europe. I took a plane with my sister. We spent a weekend in Amsterdam. I've never done this before. And
how did it make you feel?
This is something people do at 19. So
and how did it make you feel? Just
I was
free.
so happy. Yeah,
Really
and I remembered how much I love dancing. And I remember, like, why haven't I ever given dancing that much attention in my life? And I started dancing every day and taking lessons every day.
So your body just relaxed.
Yeah,
you just
because
relaxed.
I found the flow in something else.
Yeah.
I found something that I love to do as much as singing in something else, which I've never given enough attention.
Did you turn to things like yoga, meditation?
Not like at one point, but I wouldn't say that this has been the thing that really made the difference. Like, as I said, I put my energy
for you.
Absolutely.
Because it was a sense of freedom. When you dance, you feel free.
And I forgot about my voice. It was something I did where I didn't need to think whether, and it was something that I did not in a professional way. So I enjoyed so much doing all the mistakes.
It was for you.
It was for me, and I did a mistake with pride, and I knew no one is judging me. I don't care if someone says I dance well or I don't dance well. I was learning something new.
And
I was
you said earlier
it.
that you like to do tango.
Yes,
so,
and that's what I did.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
So do you have a regular partner?
No, I dance with my teacher, and in tango it's beautiful because you go to a milonga and you meet everyone who's into dancing. So you dance with so many different people.
And where do you do that? Wherever you are.
In Europe.
I
always have my dance shoes with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like
so
my
that's
dance.
your outlet. That's how you relax.
I finish a performance and then I go dancing.
That's amazing. So in each city, you know where to go.
It's very easy online to see where milonga will take place. Like Berlin is a very strong tango city. Milano as well. Paris, you have the milongas in front of the Tour Eiffel.
That's incredible.
And yeah, it's beautiful.
And so every night you can find somewhere to go.
Every night you can find somewhere to go.
Wow. And where did you learn? I
learned in Milano. Actually, a very nice story how I came into tango. Because I always danced, but I never learned how to dance tango until I was.
It's a beautiful dance.
When I learned tango, I realized that I wasn't dancing before.
Yeah.
And it has become the major dance in my life. So I remember I was in Milano and we were preparing for the Magic Flute with a director. And then in one scene, I was supposed to hug my lover, Tamino, in the opera, my partner. And then I didn't know him so well. So he said, okay, now you're going to run and jump all over him and hug him. And then when he saw that scene, he realized that there's zero chemistry. And he thought it's impossible. I will never allow you to hug someone like that on stage.
You need to connect.
So you need to do something about that. And he actually went to the academy and told them that I want to have tango lessons for these two for about 6 months so they can get to know each other. And it was incredible.
Wow.
And that was actually my entry to tango. And I met my teacher through that course. And of course, it was a beautiful way to get to know the other person as well. And also feel comfortable in your own skin with someone because on stage we are quite physical. So it
makes you feel safe with that person.
Safe and in a very beautiful, respectful way. I think that's the best way to teach also girls and boys to get to know each other physically with being respectful to each other. And I'm very thankful to my parents because they have introduced me to dance at 14. So I already knew how to dance waltz and foxtrot and standard tango and mambo and rumba and cha-cha-cha and swing.
Alongside your early singing.
Yeah, and that was beautiful because I always felt comfortable with the opposite sex in that sense. And it was very, very nice.
Wow. So, that's amazing.
So that's how I got into tango.
That's a really important part of your life.
Very important. Yeah.
That's incredible.
But I loved how the director actually thought about tango
Yes.
to make us learn how to get
How to
comfortable
be
with each
together
other.
physically on stage.
Exactly.
So that's amazing.
No,
So
I'm happy. I still carry it with me,
Yeah.
even 6 years later. I cannot live without it anymore. So I'm very grateful to that.
Have you ever been to Argentina?
Not yet.
So that's
I'm
obviously,
dying.
yeah, you've got to go there. So tell me, Fatma, about your album.
Yes.
So I know that it came out last year, right?
It came
it's
out.
beautiful.
Thank you.
I
Did you
listened to it.
listen
I loved it.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
lovely.
I actually worked to it.
Lovely.
Yeah,
I'm very
it's
glad
really,
to hear that.
really lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy.
No, but tell me about it because it's. I mean, I don't know much about the sort of classical music profession in terms of recording.
Okay, I don't know where to start because, okay, the name of the album is El Nur, which is the light. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to shed light on different types of music that maybe other cultures or other people are not very familiar with, and show that there are actually very strong connections. And not because I'm Egyptian or singing Arabic exactly, and not because I sing Arabic means that a French person or a German wouldn't really relate to it.
Yeah.
And that there are a lot of elements that you could use to make people relate to Arabic music and vice versa, which was very important to me. The idea was to put music in the center point and not the words. And it was amazing for me when I did some research on composers who are quite obsessed with the Middle East, how they put Middle Eastern music while they've never been actually to the Middle East, and their own imagination about what does it look like Persia, or what does it look like
their
Egypt.
Interpretation of it.
Yes, yeah. and their own, like, you know, Carmen, you might know the opera of Carmen, who wrote it is Bizet, Georges Bizet. He has never been to Spain before, and he wrote the most incredible Spanish piece ever. I love how their imagination, how limitless it was. You know, if you had been to Egypt and you would write about Egypt, you know what you're talking about. But if you've never been, you have a much wider sense of imagination to imagine what it could have been like.
Of course. And what about Verdi when he wrote Aida?
Yeah,
Had he been to Egypt?
That too.
He hadn't been to Egypt,
no,
I think.
I don't think so.
Yeah. They call it Aida in Europe, but Aida in Egypt, right?
Yeah, Aida.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, the same thing I always say, great composers always have that. Muhammad Abdul Wahab, he wrote a lot about pharaonic music. Well, has he ever lived in the pharaonic period? No. But he kind of created a very strong vibe to pharaonic music that makes you think, now when you listen to it, you think pharaohs, but you've never actually lived in the time of pharaohs to think, but he created it.
Yeah.
And I think this is brilliant.
Do you feel like you have the desire or the ability to write? Is that something that attracts you? Yeah.
I don't think this is my zone,
not your...
or maybe not yet.
Yeah.
But I'm more of an interpreter.
And what about crossover? Like crossing over to do singing with a pop star? You know, like the three tenors in the 90s did that. Do you see that as something you'd be interested in, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's kind of fun, and you reach an entirely different audience as well.
Very much so. No, I would love to do collaborations with,
like who, for example, who. Didn't Lady Gaga do something like that? She's got a voice that can.
Yeah, I think she sang with. She sang with this
Tony Bennett.
Bennett. She did, and I think she did an album, if I'm not mistaken. She still performs with them. And
she has a voice like that could, you know, that could work in a crossover situation. Yeah.
And Ed Sheeran sang with Bocelli.
That's right.
So did Beyonce. So I think, and Pavarotti, of course, he started all that. And I loved all his collaborations.
It was
with Celine Dion.
Exactly. It was a fun. And it attracted a different audience to opera, who then discovered pure opera, you know?
Of course.
That's an interesting thing.
I think it's very important. And I hope I can do that also with Arabic music.
Exactly.
So that's, we'll see. I don't know.
So, as you know, the podcast is called What I Did Next. What do you feel is next for you, Fatma?
I mean, I hope I can. It's very hard for me to speak about what kind of dream I have next. And as I said, I'm quite anxious about planning ahead. So I always feel also after the experience I've had so far, my small experience I've had so far, I hope that whatever I do next, I can always be happy doing it. And I think that health is so important. So I hope I can keep my health and be happy. And then whatever comes, if I decide to change careers, if I decide to do something else, stick to what I'm doing, I hope I can always do it with passion and be happy, because there are so many unhappy people in this, like really like the Pagliacci, as you say in opera. You go on stage, you make people laugh, or you touch people what you're doing, or you have a smile on your face, you seem to be successful or have a lot of money. And I've met a lot of people, and myself, sometimes I go back to my room and I could be quite unhappy sometimes, or lonely.
Oh yeah, everybody.
And when you're on stage, you're quite alone as well. So I hope that whatever I do, I can always still be happy and keep my drive and whatever I'm going to do in life. I think
because you're clearly very passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, and this
you
passion needs to stay.
Yeah.
And in order to stay, it's important to have a break, to miss singing a bit.
Of course.
Go back to it.
Course.
And also work on yourself to develop. I think I hope so much that I can have a long career. But my sister was just telling me, life doesn't get better than this moment we're living right now. Like tomorrow is a new day and we'll see how it goes, but it won't get better than right now. So it's always very hard for me to think about the future. I try not to think, especially after the Corona experience.
That's it as well. You want to live in the present as much as possible.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I would rather have that.
Fatma, it was an absolute joy to have you on the show.
Malak, I didn't feel the time. So
I'm
thank you.
I'm so glad you came on the show. Honestly, this was a real treat for me. Thank you for listening today. This episode of What I Did Next was brought to you by A&T Media with me, Malak Fuad, and is co-produced by Chirag Desai. Please remember to follow us on Instagram and Facebook for updates on the show. Just search for What I Did Next. We are now also on Twitter, so you could also follow us there. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a review in your podcast player of choice. Our next episode will be in 2 weeks' time. We hope you can join us then.